When the call came out, as I can remember it came out on our pagers as a gunshot wound.
I'll never forget. I'll never forget to the minute what I was doing.
I just went in, seen what was going on, and it was something you won't ever forget.
Sometimes a story is so devastating, it does not get easier to tell with time. The story about what happened to Sherry and Megan Shear is like that. It doesn't matter how many years have passed or how many other memories have filled your head since that day. If you truly know the story, if Sherry and Megan are your family members, or they were your friends or neighbors in the small town of Portageville, Missouri, if you were one of the first responders at the scene or one of the investigators who spent 2 decades searching for their killer, then you know their story is just as difficult to tell today as it was when you first heard it. But those who can tell Sherry and Megan's story want you to hear it because they understand the significance of how it ends.
So what if it was just a drifter and that's why nobody knows them?
You walk in and see what someone has done to them.
I don't know how we kept missing him. He just fell through every crack there was.
I'm just a firm believer that there's more cases out there.
My mother would leave for work and tell us, do not let him out of the house.
He doesn't always stick to the same weapons. He doesn't always do things the same way.
At the end of the day, it's for the girls. So you need to make damn sure you've got all the answers.
I'm Kathy Sweeney, and this is Chasing a Ghost, Chapter 2, No Going Back. Before we begin, a few notes about this episode, which involves the 1998 murders of Sherry and Megan Shear. Out of respect for the family's privacy, I will not be using the first name of Sherry's husband. You will also not hear what happened to Megan described in detail. Investigators went to great lengths to keep that information private, and I'm going to continue to honor that. This episode does contain some descriptions of the crime scene and references to murder and sexual assault that may be disturbing for some listeners. Please listen with care. Robert Eugene Brashers is an American serial killer who was born in 1958 and died in 1999. Brashers currently has 8 known victims, including the 4 teenage girls killed in the 1991 yogurt shop murders in Austin, Texas. But it's very possible Brashers would be known only as a career criminal with a violent streak and a habit of stealing vehicles if he had just stayed out of Portageville, Missouri. No one knows for sure why he stopped there, but once he did, his fate would be sealed. He would continue to run and hide and conceal his identity. We know he committed at least one more murder. But after Portageville, there would be no going back. Robert Brashers was on the long road to being caught. He just didn't know it yet.
These kind of things don't happen in New Madrid County until they happen.
And when it did happen in New Madrid County, Missouri on March 28, 1998, former Sheriff Terry Stevens remembers the disbelief everyone felt and the fear.
Who can you trust? Who's your neighbor? Who's your friend? And who's not?
What happened that night in the small town of Portageville would become the most thoroughly investigated case his county would ever see.
It happened about 2 miles from my mother's house. Happened in Freddie's backyard.
That's right.
He lives right here in Portageville.
Freddie is Freddie Hill, the Portageville police chief. Back in 1998, Hill was a Portageville patrolman. The 2 men met me in Hill's conference room to talk about the crime that defined their careers. This is Freddie Hill.
I was the first person on the scene of the crime.
I remember talking to you a couple times about that, and it was tough to talk about then. Is it still tough to talk about it now?
You never forget the images of the crime. When you walk in the front door and you can still see the victims, especially when you know them very well. when you know the mother, the daughter, and the family, when you see them, it always stays right there in your mind.
Late March in southeast Missouri can still be chilly, or it can be nice and warm. It really depends on the day. Saturday, March 28, 1998, was warm enough to spend the afternoon outside. And that's just what 38-year-old Sherry Shear and her 12-year-old daughter Megan did, working in the yard, while her husband and 15-year-old son Stephen spent the day on the tractor. In 2017, I interviewed Stephen Shear as part of a special report on his mom and sister's case. Here's Stephen taking us back to that late Saturday afternoon.
We were headed home at about 6:20 that night. There was a trailer truck that had gotten out in the road and couldn't get turned, and anyway, it was blocking our way home.
As his dad visited with that farmer, Stephen called home. In the 2017 news report, Stephen guided us through a reenactment of the call, which you're about to hear. You'll then hear my voice briefly before Stephen picks the story back up.
Hello?
Errol, we're supposed to be going to see Michaela.
She already called. Whenever you get home, I'll run you uptown.
Okay.
See you in a little bit. Bye.
Those are the last words Stephen would hear his mother speak. His dad called back 20 minutes later.
And there was no answer on the phone. And me and him just figured that they'd gone to town to pick up a pizza. Pulled up to the house, everything looks normal. He walks in the garage and he puts his hand on the car hood and he said, "It's not even warm." And he's looking at the mail and I'm flying through the house, and out of the corner of my eye, I see my mom and sister. I was always the kid playing jokes, pranks, and that's, at first glance, that's what I thought. And then when I reached down, I felt to my mom and she was warm. And then I looked at my sister and I felt to her and she was cold.
Sherry Shear was found lying on her stomach on her living room floor, gagged with a sock. She had been shot 3 times in the head. Her daughter Megan was lying near her. Megan's hands were tied behind her back. She too had been shot, and you could clearly see she had been sexually assaulted. Stephen's father called 911. It did not take long for the devastating details of the crime to reach local first responders. Portageville patrolman Mark Stockton told me this about the crime scene.
And I would say that's probably the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life.
Soon, local police would be joined by county and state investigators, including Missouri State Highway Patrol Sergeant Don Wyndham, who took charge of the crime scene.
I think when I walk in, I've seen a lot of these, and when I walk in, I think I flip a switch, I guess, to say, okay, what do I need to do to try to find out who did this? It was obvious the target of this was Megan, the young girl. She was in what was really the horrific part of this. Not only was she assaulted and shot and just horrible, she was posed like he wanted to show what he had done. I can tell you that he brought some items to help him control the victims. And I have evidence that I believe will show that he also took those items back with him.
And by control, did he tie them up? He secured them?
They were both bound and gagged.
No one could believe what had just happened, even as they took crime scene photos and swabbed blood off the Shears brick fireplace. Former Sheriff Terry Stevens worked as an investigator for the New Madrid County Prosecutor's Office at the time of the murders. Stevens remembers how he felt about the way Megan was found.
When you walked in and seen how that scene was staged, it was presented for a shock value.
But those officers knew they had to shake off the shock as best they could and get to work. Master Sergeant Bud Cooper with the Missouri State Highway Patrol explained their strategy.
We set up a command post at the armory. We had a lot of officers come in from the area. I'd say ultimately we ended up with 75 to 100 police officers here.
Cooper, who passed away in 2025, played a key role in the Scheer case from its first day to its last. In the hours after the murders, Cooper told me one of their first thoughts was how far away their suspect could have gotten.
30 miles, 50 miles, 75 miles, and alerting the people in Tennessee, Arkansas, Illinois, outside Missouri.
They also learned how little time Sherry and Megan's killer spent inside the house, based on when Stephen talked to his mom on the phone, when his dad called back and got no answer, and when the two of them made it home.
We had figured he had about a 30-minute window of opportunity to be in that house, to get in and get out.
Dozens of assembled officers spread out into the community, knocking on doors, interviewing neighbors. Did anybody hear anything, see anything? They all worked for hours that first night, finding nothing. Here's Terry Stevens again.
After a certain point in the night, early morning, I went home to try to get a few hours sleep. And I laid down for about an hour, and I finally got back up and was fixing to get in the shower, and my wife said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see that little girl, and I can't stand it. I got to go back." And that's an image I won't never forget.
It's an image retired Highway Patrol investigator Don Wyndham also cannot forget. I recently caught up with Wyndham by phone. He still finds it difficult to talk about the Scheer crime scene.
Most people can't imagine what it's like to see a 12-year-old girl have to go through what she went through. And I'm kind of speaking around all the things that I saw that was done to her there, but it was horrible. And it leaves a sick feeling that you'll never forget.
Wyndham remembers focusing on doing whatever he could at that scene to catch Sherry and Megan's killer.
I started trying everything and doing a lot of stuff that I had never done before, that I just read about or had heard that they were trying out this, new technology or new things to do at crime scenes. And I tried everything.
Wyndham's efforts to try everything continued the day after the murders at Megan's autopsy.
I mean, I was fingerprinting the body at the autopsy. And then I ended up taking some evidence that they didn't even test for a long time.
And Don Wyndham wasn't really sure what evidence he had just collected, because for the first time in his career, Wyndham had swabbed an area on a victim's body for possible traces of saliva. That swab would be placed in a sealed envelope and stored with the rest of the evidence collected at the Scheer crime scene. And there it would wait, patiently, for 6 years. Only then would investigators learn just how significant Wyndham's actions would be.